Marcos Villegas here with Joe Goossen, the now trainer of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who has a really tough matchup coming up on Showtime this weekend at the StubHub Center. Joe, let's start out with Junior going up to you and asking you to train him. How did that happen?
That's a good question. I don't know if it was just coincidence, serendipity, or what. I had, normally I get asked quite a few times when I do interviews, as just a throwaway line, who's out there that you're not training that you would want to train. And, usually at the top of my list I'd always answer, well, Julio Jr. For whatever reasons in particular, I would look at him fight and I go, man, I'd really like to get my hands on him and get him into my gym. And the last time I had actually done an interview and stated that, literally 2 days later, I got a call that, they were interested in having me in the camp and working as a trainer. And so I don't know if it had something to do with the past interviews or that particular interview, but it was certainly kind of close proximity to my statement and them calling me. So, I don't know what really brought it about, but I'm very happy they did.
Were you a little bit hesitant given? No, not at all? Because, it's been said that Junior's not the hardest worker. I know he's been working really hard, but a lot of the past stuff.
Look, because somebody's got a supposed reputation for not working hard would never deter me from not wanting to train him, because one of the reasons in particular might be that I think I could be the guy that turns him around, and that's the challenge, and that's something that you always want a cooperative fighter if you can get them, but not all fighters are cooperatives, and actually sometimes the better they are, the less cooperative they are.
You get that diva factor, huh, with some of those fighters.
I don't know if it's a diva factor, but there's a lot of intangibles that go into why things work out the way they do. Usually the hardest working guys are the guys that don't always have the most talent, but they can still succeed because of that hard work and dedication. And then you can have these supremely talented athletes and fighters who may work 70% to their abilities, but still look phenomenal. So, again, a lot of intangibles here, but, Julio certainly, if he did have the rap on him that he wasn't the hardest worker, he certainly disproved that with me.
I was going to get to that. The videos that he's released on the internet, on his Instagram, seems he's more focused than ever. What did he tell you? Did he tell you that he wants to prove people wrong, or that he just wants to show that he's credible?
Telling somebody something and then actually doing it are two different things. It's what he showed me. And number one, for Julio to remove himself and extricate himself from the cushy comforts of Los Angeles and his exquisite, surroundings, for him to do that and to pack up and go to a lonely mountaintop in Lake Tahoe at 7,000 feet, where, the conditions aren't exactly, as glorious as Los Angeles. They were harsh, it was cold, it was windy,
Rocky type stuff.
It was isolated, it was segregated, it was, all the things that, make things a little more difficult to live there when you're used to something better. But on the other hand, you knew it was for a real good cause and for the betterment of the fighter. So the running and the training up in the altitude, the mountains, the hills, the focus of the isolation, focuses you. And it was just, I think if anybody had ever said anything deleterious about his training before, had they spent the 5 weeks up there with us, they would have probably changed their mind, because it was a tremendous camp, very focused, very positive. It was a very upbeat camp. Look, So whatever, you know, criticisms might have been there, I think they were dispelled with this camp.
The night of the fight, do you feel because maybe he had a year off that he'll come out more willing to engage than normal, or do you see him with what you've taught him to be calm and patient in there?
Well, look, you know, aside from what we were taught or instructed or what happened up in camp, I would just say this to address your question about the length of time off. You know, there are some fighters that, you know, unless they're extremely athletic, they have a hard time. The mechanics feel a little rusty, if you want to use that word. You know, those are, I'd say, a good majority of fighters would feel that way. With Julio, I'm going to tell you, he's a superlative athlete.
Well, we can't wait, Joe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Tell Junior to stay away from the special teas, because last time we drank a special tea, it didn't turn out too well with the Martinez fight.
Yeah,
but
listen,
he looks in shape.
Let
He
me
looks
just
good.
tell you something. The only special teas around our camp is Mr. T. So, you know, don't worry about that.
And he pities the fool. He says to drink your milk too as well. Joe Goossen right here with me. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fights this Saturday on Showtime at the StubHub Center.